What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today, guess what we're going to be going over? None other than Alternate Beings EX4 tier list. So without further ado, let's see how much BS I can sell you on this tier list, shall we? So, as usual, we go over color by color and explain what is going on. So, shall we start off? First off, we do have Digimon. Digimon, definitely think that it's a tier 2 deck. It still can do some crazy shenanigans, yes, but most of the tier 1 decks kind of just river stomp it a little bit, and that's just because of how fast paced they are. Digimon can build up walls and kind of make itself useful, but with the new raid mechanics and all the other mechanics that were introduced, this deck has taken and became least favorable out of all the major decks you kind of would see in a tournament. Jessamon used to be one of those good contenders. Then we do have Phoenixmon. Phoenixmon definitely just needs some better support, to be honest with you. And once it gets it, it'll definitely move up into, I think, good but needs more kind of category once we get to BT13. And hopefully EX4 and BT15 will finally push this Phoenixmon deck to where it needs to be and probably bring it up into the tier 2 category. I think right now, even the next couple waves of support, it does struggle a little bit. Then we do have Marsmon. Marsmon's good with its raid mechanic, but it definitely needs some more support just because it only had that one wave. Yes, you can combo it in with Phoenixmon and it'll do something, but right now, it's not enough. They both kind of want to be their own signature deck. Yes, they kind of both rely on the Red Tamer aspect, and it's great spicy tech, but outside of that, nothing too crazy. Let's talk about it. We know about Emperor Greymon is a crazy strong deck. It's almost one of the closer gatekeepers, but it's definitely a tier 1 deck, in my opinion. So definitely keep that in mind. Then we do have none other than Gallantmon. I think it is one of the few decks that is a tier 2 one. After some reevaluation, it's a good deck. It's kind of like Jessamon. It's good. It was good before, everything like that. And the new support really does well. If we were talking about ulti cups, definitely Gallantmon would go probably 1.5 in my opinion. But with how strong every other deck is, the deck does kind of just fail to keep up. So that's one of the major key throttling points here. Then we do have War Greymon. War Greymon's definitely a crazy strong deck. It is what we kind of expect from a format like this. So definitely something to keep an eye out on. I think these two are definitely one of the better red decks of the format. And then we do have Chaosdramon. I think Chaosdramon is actually quite well. The only time it kind of loses is to itself or to a bad pilot of the deck. The deck has a lot of strengths. The sticky resilience that this deck has is huge. It's a red-black deck at the end of the day. And, you know, there are splashes, but it's mostly red-based, but black-based, I mean. You could definitely play it in one or two ways. You could go the Gigimon route, where you can draw cards that way and then just hard play, or you can do the climbable stack route. Either or is not bad. The deck's still the same at the end of the day. Just one relies on different factors, but it's not a terrible lineup. So I think this is really solid here and definitely worth keeping an eye on. Then we do have Crossheart. Crossheart definitely isn't like the tier 1 scary deck anymore. It's not the boogeyman. There's just a lot of decks that can just answer a lot of Crossheart. And especially because it does have superior mode. It can remove most boss Digimon, but after that, if they can follow up when you give them a bunch of memory, you're not in a good spot to keep pace with them. Anything that de-digivolves this deck really hurts it, and the fact that Chaosdramon kind of just can wall up against it, even at the best of times, the deck really does struggle against Machinedramon and a few other decks that are just a little bit better. You know, that's just my opinion there. Then we have none other than Ancient Greymon OTK. I definitely think it's a sleeper pick. It definitely got some decent support in, you know, the tier 1 category, but I think it still will produce results. if you build up. Again, there's not many decks that if you open the nuts with, this is one of those decks, open the nuts, you're kind of just, your opponent's really struggling. If you can clear 5 securities without even batting an eye, you're in a good spot. But there are a lot of blockers in the format and a lot of other answer situations that kind of just answer this deck. So, because the strategy it wants to play, this is what I mean. It builds up in the stack, so if a deck is a little bit faster or can bounce back extremely well, you're in a bad spot with this deck. So, definitely keeping that in mind. Agumons, I think this deck is good, but definitely needs more. I think the deck can still steal some magical wins depending on situations, but it's still one of those fun rogue decks that you will be playing and seeing at some locals if people like it. The self-suiciding effect is what really is hard for me to sell the deck to you guys. Then we do have Dorobrick. Dorobrick definitely, I think, is still a solid 1.5 contender. It's still really solid. I mean, even in Ulti Cups, it's really good. People can slam down Dorobrick and still kind of clear out house. So, definitely taking this in consideration, we should take a look at that. And then, any other really new red decks? Oh, yeah. Galmon. Galmon is a new red deck. This one is basically same thing as War Greymon. It does the same thing through its base end, but it ends up being this top end situation. So that's kind of where that goes. And then I did forget Black War. So to be honest with you, they're kind of in a triangle here. Either 3 of these decks are really good. They didn't lose out on much. There's only very small differences that are played and noticeable in the deck. But again, you have War Greymon, Black War Greymon. To be honest with you, I think Black War Greymon's just a tad bit better, just because of the fact that it does focus on a little bit more DDG evolution, controlling the field, and that resilience that it has naturally really does make a difference for this. So I definitely think my change of perception is that these 3 are kind of just in really good. Actually, to be honest with you, it hasn't really topped much, so I think we will bring this group down into tier 1.5. Just because the resilience that it did have. I mean, the speed of Greymon X Antibody definitely was hurting this deck, but definitely has potential, to be honest with you. 1.5 is not bad. It's a really good, solid deck to bring to any event or locals, and you'll definitely do well. So, definitely keep this in mind. Let's see, is that all for red? I think so. Yeah, we definitely had red covered now. Then we have Mirage Galga. Mirage Galga definitely is tier 2, bottom end of it. It definitely feels like it's good, but needs more. But with the new support it just got through the format of EX4, it definitely speeds up the deck a little bit. And it's something comfortable that it likes. To be honest with you, I think it's pretty solid. Then we do have All Force. All Force, definitely with the new support it got in the Golden Vidramon, it really does help out in the Quartz matchup that it really needed. Any Quartz deck kind of just punishes this deck a little bit too hard, but with the fact of that it can handle itself here, it's good to see that I think All Force is still really good. It can OTK out of nowhere, it can just slam down Tamer after Tamer and just restand, especially with arenas and everything like that, keeping your turn really solid in my opinion. Then we do have Imperial Dramon. Imperial Dramon really does what Imperial Dramon always did. It always, multi-attacks with jamming and everything like that. It definitely is, it holds up with the meta at times, but then it kind of does struggle if it doesn't see everything and goes off when it needs to. So that is kind of where I stand at it. I think it's a tier 2 deck. I think it's like borderline, like good, but needs more kind of situation here. But it's definitely a little bit better. It just needs a little more synergy to focus on what it wants to do. Just with the new support, it kind of seems like it kind of shifted a little bit of what it was trying to do. Now it's not doing it as consistently. So that's just my opinion. Then we have the Garubon's deck, Bonds of Friendship. It's good, but it needs some more. You could definitely tech in like Leo, make this Leobon, but Leobon I count by itself in its own accord, but it's good. It definitely needs some more support. It can definitely do some crazy shenanigans when you get things going and rolling out. Then we do have Blue Hybrid. Definitely can do some crazy shenanigans. I mean, if you go Blue Hybrid All Force, I definitely say this would be the combination there if you're going this way. If you're just doing, Blue Hybrid by itself, definitely think it's just give them better support at this point, just because it needs some more TLC, to be honest with you, to do some crazy shenanigans, in my opinion. Then we have the Metal Garurumon. To be honest with you, normally I would have put it in 1.5, but definitely after everything, it just needs that second wave of support, which is the starter deck Ace. It'll definitely change up to being something different, but the Ace card really does help the deck get back right into it. That one card will actually speed this thing back up, and I think once we have the Ace that BT13 is going to introduce early, that probably will bring it to a 1.5 standing. But for now, I think this is where it's going to stay at. Then we do have Armors. Armors, I think, is kind of same thing. It got a new support in Golden Beedramon, which gave it another armor to work with. Most decks don't really get a small trickle in like that, so it's really good for this deck, being able to have the new armor. Definitely will do some crazy shenanigans, in my opinion. Then we have Leomon or Leobons. Definitely good, but Leomon definitely needs to try to find its own identity and a better top end, and it hasn't really gotten that, which is sad to say, to be honest with you. Then we have Examon. Examon, sadly, went from being like a gatekeeper in its own right, from tier 2 to, close to just good but needs more kind of situation. Even with its BT13 counterpart edition, it didn't do anything to the deck to increase its consistency or anything worth noting. So it becomes really sad when the deck that basically used to be classified one of the gatekeepers fell off this hard, but we're also no longer in an OTK format, and that's just huge information. Then we have Fishy Boys, Igastramon. The fish deck, definitely the hybrid stuff from last set did do it well, but it just give them better support at this point. It needs more, and it's going to need more to be able to stand on its own two legs. So then another deck I want to talk about, and this is just a pure blue deck, is the fact of Blue Flare. Blue Flare would normally probably be in the 1.5 category, but after seeing JP's results and the fact that it got some great support in its own pure build, and you don't have to splash in other stuff like the RideGraymon for extra security checks, this now got the pieces in a draw and jamming aspect that now lets it be able to swing. Most of the time, if they swung in and something was bigger than it, it died. And then you had to waste resources to get it back in. But now with jamming and no longer restricting yourself against your opponent if they have, two or more, if they played it in a way that basically restricts you in conjunction of all the stuff you want to do, that's going to hurt. I mean, what I mean by this is that if they just basically play one Digimon and do the one stack thing, this deck kind of flopped before. Now you do have a second way of changing things up, and I think that's really solid and what the deck actually really needed. And then I think that's all for blue. If I miss blue, we'll add that final blue in, but let's get into yellow. Yellow is kind of in a good spot, to be honest with you. Just kidding. So first off, let's talk about Venusmon, better known as, one of the security con style of play, but it definitely has some potential here. It's just one of those decks that are good. Venusmon is a strategy in our own right, and it's worth just talking about it. Venusmon is solid. Being able to mitigate just the Hunter matchup and any other big threats can really do some things. So I think I'll just move Venusmon here. Really solid there. I mean, she did get straight support last set, but it's not that good. Then we have King Sukaimon or Sukamon, one of the two. This is King. The poop deck is good, but definitely needs more support. Even with the Metal Edamon coming in, it's not terrible. And then it gets a little bit more support in the following set. So we'll have to see how it goes from there. I think it's good, but definitely needs some more support. The fact that we can change and lock out your opponent's color Digimon from being able to Digivolve up further is vital and important. So definitely keeping that in mind. Then we have Shine Greymon. Definitely got some more support and tools to play with. That the new Rise, the new Agumon, the new Geogray definitely rounds out the deck's core issue it had. And it's just one more set away from being this best deck in format, in my opinion. So we'll have to see what happens going forwards. Then we do have Alphanimon Loop, or better known as the one deck that basically was really good for a bit and then kind of just fell off. So I definitely think it's good, but definitely needs some more support, which probably will happen in BT14, to be honest with you. It's a vaccine, very centralized deck. There's not many viruses you would play in that deck. So having that Patamon or any more of the angelic cards, that deck will definitely probably shoot back up to here. It's very much a toolbox theme set, the BT14, which is really helps out a lot of these kind of decks be better, be stronger, what you want to see. So definitely keeping that in mind. Let's see, anything else? We have Setcon, we have this. So we'll save those for later. But I think that taps out for yellow there. Next, we do have green. Bloomlord definitely did get a little bit of a smack on the butt with losing Argomon, but they just bring into Cherry. The Quartz deck is still good, to be honest with you. But again, paired to these couples, this doesn't have as many result tops, so that kind of affects its standings. Then we have Digimon. So Digimon is definitely good, but definitely needs some more support before it gets crazy. I think once it gets some trickled in support in the form of the new Ruly support and all that good stuff, I think that'll pretty help this deck out. The deck gets better over time, and any deck, even once we get to BT14, I think that's going to be the major point, because the new Togemon actually helps with setting up Tamers, reducing those costs by spending your Digimon, so that kind of speeds up Digimon's effects. So that's just worth taking in itself, right? Then Rusty Boy. Rusty Boy probably just needs better support at this point if you're going to focus on Rusty. It's solid. It's got some decent plays and decent ways of going about things, but the problem comes down to, at the end of the day, Rusty does struggle a little bit and on certain play styles. So definitely keeping that in mind. Grandis, I think with the restriction to Grand Kuwagamon, it'll still, if you open up the nuts and you get everything and then be able to OTK pressure, the deck can take on any of the decks that it wants without even batting an eye. The fact that Grandis struggles just a tad bit now because of the restriction, it doesn't have that OTK pressure that it used to. I think that's really what hurts the deck in its own self, right? So I think that's just where this is going to stay now. I think definitely holds up with the meta. It's kind of borderline here too, but I think just holding up with the meta, it does kind of do what it needs to, in my opinion. Then we do have, let's see, more green. Green doesn't really have many crazy decks, to be honest with you. It started falling off. Mecha Gargo, Black Mecha Gargo, it's a green deck for sure, but it just needs more support. The theme kind of switched over in a way that it wasn't really supposed to, and then it stopped focusing on what it wanted to. Yes, it does have a little bit of an alliance package now, but it just doesn't mesh well. It hasn't meshed well in a bit. Oh, I forgot about you, Kaze, aka Sukuyamon. We need to talk about you in a minute. Well, let's finish up green, and then we'll bounce back to Kazemon. Cherubimon, aka the Reliance Bunny Lopmon Terriermon deck. Just give them better support. To be honest with you, they had potential, but the fact that it needs more is Screaming Something, especially since these are supposed to be one of the top decks that was supposed to be selling the set, was Alliance and the Ultra deck. Alliance kind of just flopped hard. It just doesn't have everything it needs to, and being the case that yes, it can climb up and do all these crazy shenanigans, it just didn't end up being what we needed to be. So let's talk about Kazemon, or aka Sukuyamon. I think it's good, but it definitely needs more support. It's a little bit better than its level 4. It definitely moved up. The support definitely helped it in a way that it needed, but it didn't climb it up as fast as it should. You know, just collect Kazemon if you think you're going to be playing that theme, and you know, your Sukuyamon, Renamon decks, just pick it up just for more support. It's going to be a little bit before we can break it. So moving on to black, we have Justimon. Justimon, definitely just give them better support at this point. It just needs some more TLC. It does have some crazy shenanigans with doing Justy Kick security kind of craziness, where it uses Mimi and Justy Kick to be reduced cost because of every tamer. That Mimi reduces it there. It's like a reduced by 2 kind of situation. Not terrible, but it definitely needs some new support, like a new baseline, definitely to focus on and get that understanding of, hey, I need to focus on something. It has trouble focusing on what it wants to do. So I definitely think that's where that's at. Then let's get into Grazed Nightmon. Grazed Nightmon, good, but definitely needs some more TLC. It's got some stuff it wants to do, but man, oh man, does it not have a linear focus. It tries to miss and match the Blue Flare with the Dark Nightmon, and then it becomes this hybrid Frankenstein monster that just doesn't do well because it doesn't know where it wants to lean. Yes, you have the one tamer that can kind of help fix things up, but that's not enough for this deck, in my opinion. Then we have Dark Nightmon. I think it's a tier 2 deck. Definitely the support it got was decent. Does it match the Blue Flare? No. Blue Flare was just a ticking time bomb that just needed a way of getting around your opponents, you know, playing only one Digimon and keeping that one stack and choking you outright. Now, Dark Nightmon suffers from one thing and one thing only, and I think that is just, yes, it's supposed to be like a control deck and everything like that, but it needs one thing in general, and I think that leads to being one card. And I think that is, give them rush. They need some sort of rush, even if it's just Dark Nightmons gain rush. That would be huge for this deck. I think making it so your level 5 is the rusher would have been very important and really would have stepped up the deck's game. I think that's the biggest issue with this deck, is it's always a turn too slow, but it definitely walls up nicely. Yes, it's supposed to create this wall, but if you made it so that if your Dark Nightmons you played gain rush for when they are hard casted, by giving us like a Yu and Nene that does that for Bagra too, the decks would actually do quite well, in my opinion. I think they both suffer from not having rush in a format that hard playing something that, yes, is a sort of sticky body, kind of suffers from. So definitely keeping that in mind. Then we have D-Brigade. Definitely still think it's a solid tier 2 deck. The deck's going to rush down your opponent like it always does. There's no issues there. I think that's where we want to take that. It's Rookie Rush, just black style. Then we do have Alphamon OTK. Alphamon's good. I think it still can squeak in sneaky wins, even with its hit. I think it's just pretty sneaky wins that Alphamon can do. We'll see a top here and there, but Alphamon definitely has its like stand on. But once it gets its next wave of support, oh boy, definitely 1.5 top end, to be honest with you. But outside of that, nothing too crazy. Then we do have Galacticmon. I would say it holds up, but at the same time, it does struggle against DDG Evolution, and there's a lot of it still floating about. And people swap in between DDG Evolution theme very much. You know, you have Machine Dramon with Chaos Dramon that de-digivolves Galacticmon down to its rookie base. You have the fact of Black War Greymon can de-digivolve it. You know, all these de-digievolution themes really make the deck struggle, and even Dark Knightmon can de-digivolve it. And that really sets you back, and that gets really scary pretty quickly. So, definitely taking a look at that. And then we do have Alter S. I actually think Alter S is crazy strong. I think it's one of the better decks in the set, and being able to go into Alter B, the deck has a very much linear style play, and I think that would be the only thing that would make the deck not perform well, is people don't like linear sometimes. They do, but they like variety. This deck only does one thing and one thing only. After doing that 20 times or 8 times in a tournament, do you know, 8 times 3, 8, 16, 32 times in a major event doesn't make sense? No, 24 times. Sorry. 8, 16, 24 times. I feel like that's going to be what drives people away, is that it just does the same thing. It's the one can trick deck. And when it comes down to that, people like to have variety when playing. The deck is very much structuralized on doing one thing and one thing only. There's no variety. There's no changing things up. This deck is just very much solid in its way of thinking. Then we have Dragon Links. Just give them better support at this point. It just needs a couple more waves of support. It's been a few sets. I think that's just its major issue and downfall, is it just needs some love. So now let's get into the purple stuff. Beelzemon. Beelzemon, I still don't think it's still strong. Itmon slowed it down just a tad bit, but you have Darkness Wave, that one cost option. Does the same thing. You can slam that down, mill more, and then you're in a good spot. I mean, things like that do change things up. And does it choke well? No, because Darkness Wave, if you keep hitting your memory gains, you just reset yourself for that one choke point, and it gets really weird and pretty awkward pretty quickly. So I think it does. The deck's still strong. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. Then we have Bagra Army. Bagra, just give them better support at this point. Yes, they have Darkness Bagra, but it didn't do anything for the deck entirely. You can splash in blue to do the Kaiser Nail shenanigans, but it needs some love, to be honest with you. I just think that's huge information there. Then we have Bellastar. The fact that they got Ruin Mode is definitely really a contender there. It did get hurt. It definitely got hurt. And I think with the hit of Itmon, the way the deck was going to go really slowed the deck down and hurt it more than it got hurt by Beelzemon did. I think Bellastar got hurt more on it. So that's definitely something you have to take a look at. Mastemon, good, but definitely needs some more TLC. I think giving it more, just needs some more support. Definitely does change things up. BT14 looks like where you're going to get that support that you want. Definitely there. Then we do have Red Purple Imperial Dramon. Good, but definitely needs more. The deck is linear. It kind of has the same thing. It can, when it goes off here, similar to this, can definitely go off. But the consistency of doing it is a lot harder than this will ever be. So definitely, it needs some more support. Definitely needs some love. Chaos Gallantmon. Definitely good. It can do some crazy shenanigans, but suffers from Gallantmon's weaknesses as well. Yes, it does have a way of replaying body, but at the end of the day, you're kind of in a bad spot, to be honest. Chaos Gallantmon definitely needs some more support at this point. Then we have Ravemon. Just give them better support. It does have potential, but it just needs that love, to be honest with you. So now we're getting into what is multicolors and stuff like that, and then white. We'll go over white real quick. Mother D Reaper. I think it's just showing the test of time of its greatest weakness, and that is just decks with raid exist. Now they just can swing into mom very easily, which sets yourself back. The fact of there's really powerful decks that just don't care about things you do. That all adds up pretty quickly. So definitely think Mother D Reaper is good, but definitely needs some more new TLC. Now getting into multicolors. So Setcon, definitely a 1.5 deck. It always kind of just defines the meta depending on what's in it. So Setcon, even with the new Black Serapha, being able to de-digivolve your opponent's Digimon definitely helps out when they take one of your security. So definitely looking at that as this. Setcon's really solid there. Let's see. Evil Hunters. Yes, it's good. It's good, especially with the armor form Quartzmon weird quirkiness. So since they do have armor form, you can tuck a Quartzmon underneath and then basically remove it with armor texture, and then it falls off, and all you have is Quartzmon on board. Your opponent's looking down on it. It does what it wants to do, but I feel like it's a little bit slower when it just doesn't do everything at the right time. So I think it's good. I'll actually put it in tier 2, actually. I think it definitely can hold up with the meta. It's just borderline here, I think. Then we do have Hunters. Hunters definitely feels like the deck to beat of the format, just because people definitely moved off of Beelzemon because they're not thinking about what the support they have already. With Darkness Wave, again, does definitely keep the deck's tempo, and it does keep it wanting for more. But Hunters definitely is very a powerhouse. It's always going to do what it wants. Hunters is a control style of play with Rush, and that's what makes it really scary, to be honest with you. Then we have Mervaloop. Mervaloop, definitely a 1.5 deck. The fact of that it uses Blinding Ray and Gravity Crush to go all out, whew, that is huge. And I think that's very important because it can rush you down. It is a loop deck. It'll do, let me rephrase this, Merva Cross, not Merva Loop. Merva Cross is always going to do what it wants to do. I think this is pretty solid there. And then Legends of the Four Greats definitely needs its BT14 surprise support, but outside of that, I think it's even then it's a trial by error, and I don't think the deck's going to do well. But all in all, I think this is the tier list for the format. If you guys have any objections, let me know down in the comments. Let me know in the description or anything like that. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace!